We're taking a closer look at a 1957 Chevrolet 3100 short bed truck that's up for grabs on Facebook Marketplace. This classic beauty is priced at $8,500 and is located in Grainfield, Kansas, just off I-70. Now let's dive into the details. The seller mentions that this 57 Chevy has been sitting for over 20 years, so it's important to keep in mind that it will likely need some work to get it back in tip-top shape. However, the good news is that it comes with a Camaro subframe and rear end, which is a solid foundation for any restoration project. The exterior of the truck is painted in a classic green color, while the interior boasts an off-white shade. Under the hood, you'll find a gasoline-powered engine mated to an automatic transmission, which should make for a smooth driving experience once it's up and running. According to the seller, the vehicle has a clean title and no significant damage or problems. This is crucial information for any potential buyer, as it suggests that the truck has a clear history and hasn't been in any major accidents. Now, I want to be completely honest with you. The fact that this truck has been sitting for over 2 decades means that it will likely require a thorough inspection and some repairs or replacements. However, if you're up for a project and have a passion for classic Chevys, this could be a fantastic opportunity. The asking price of $8,500 seems fair for a vintage truck with this much potential, especially considering the desirable short bed configuration and the upgrades already made to the chassis. Plus, the seller mentions that they have lots of pictures available, which is always a good sign. If you're interested in this 1957 Chevrolet 3100, my advice would be to reach out to the seller, ask for more information and photos, and if possible, go check it out in person. Get a feel for the truck, assess its condition, and consider the costs of any necessary repairs or upgrades before making a decision. All in all, this classic Chevy pickup could be a dream come true for the right buyer. It's got a ton of potential, and with some elbow grease and TLC, it could be a real head-turner on the road. 2. We're putting the spotlight on a 1979 Chevrolet 2500 that's currently for sale on Facebook Marketplace. This beast of a machine is priced at $10,500, and from what the seller tells us, it's got some serious power under the hood. Let's start with the heart of this 79 Chevy, a 454 engine that's only got 30,000 miles on it. That's pretty low mileage for a truck this age, and it suggests that the engine has been well maintained or even rebuilt. Paired with that massive power plant is a built 700R4 transmission with just 10,000 miles on it, which should provide smooth and reliable shifting. The seller mentions that this truck is a daily driver, and it's easy to see why. With a complete brake system overhaul, including everything brake-related being replaced, you can trust that this Chevy will stop as well as it goes. The exhaust system is also impressive, with a 3-inch setup and 4-inch tailpipes that likely give this truck a mean, throaty growl. Under the rear end, you'll find a 410-gear Posey, which should provide excellent traction and power delivery. And with a massive 100-gallon fuel tank, you can go on long hauls without worrying about constantly stopping for gas. The exterior of the truck is painted in a sleek black, while the interior sports a tan color scheme. The seller does mention that the interior could use some work, but that it's all original, which is a plus for those who value authenticity. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. The seller notes that there is rust in the rocker panels, which is a common issue with older trucks. However, they also state that they have new rocker panels and cab corners ready to go, so it seems like they're prepared to address this issue. Despite the rust, the seller claims that this Chevy 2500 can drive to California and back without any problems. That's a bold statement, but it does suggest that the truck is mechanically sound and reliable. The 4 new 305/70R16 tires and wide wheels also add to the truck's overall appearance and performance. In summary, this 1979 Chevrolet 2500 seems like a solid choice for someone who wants a powerful, reliable truck with a classic look. The low mileage on the engine and transmission, along with the recent brake system overhaul, are definite selling points. While the rust issue may be a concern for some buyers, the seller appears to be upfront about it and has the necessary parts to address it. 3. We're taking a closer look at a 1985 Chevrolet Detroit diesel truck that's currently up for sale on Facebook Marketplace. This black beauty is priced at $10,500, and according to the seller, it's a solid vehicle with a few minor issues. First off, let's talk about the mileage. This 85 Chevy has clocked in at 194,635 miles, which is pretty typical for a diesel truck of this age. Diesels are known for their longevity, and with proper maintenance, they can easily go well beyond 200,000 miles. Under the hood, you'll find a 6.2-liter diesel engine, which is a reliable and fuel-efficient power plant. The seller mentions that there's no blow-by or any other major issues with the engine, which is a good sign. The truck also features an automatic transmission, making it easy to drive and maneuver. Moving on to the exterior, the truck is painted in a classic black color, giving it a sleek and timeless look. The interior is gray, which is a neutral color that should appeal to most buyers. Now let's address some of the issues that the seller has mentioned. The speedometer and fuel gauge are not working, which is something to keep in mind. While these issues don't necessarily affect the truck's drivability, they can be inconvenient and may require some repairs. The seller also notes that there's a small power steering leak. Again, this is something that can be fixed, but it's important to factor in the cost of repairs when considering the overall price of the truck. Despite these minor issues, the seller claims that this is a good truck that runs and drives well. They're asking $10,500 or best offer, which seems like a fair price for a diesel truck of this age and condition. As always, I recommend that interested buyers reach out to the seller for more information and photos, and if possible, go check out the truck in person. Take it for a test drive, get a feel for how it handles, and assess the condition of the interior and exterior. It's also a good idea to have a mechanic inspect the truck before making a final decision, just to ensure that there are no hidden issues. In summary, this 1985 Chevrolet Detroit diesel truck seems like a solid choice for someone who wants a reliable and fuel-efficient workhorse. While it does have a few minor issues, they don't seem to be deal breakers, and the overall condition of the truck appears to be good. If you're in the market for a classic diesel truck and don't mind putting in a little work to get it in top shape, this could be a great option to consider. 4. We're diving into the details of a 1984 Chevrolet 1500 that's currently for sale on Facebook Marketplace. This red and blue beauty is priced at $5,000, and from what the seller tells us, it's got some serious power under the hood. Let's start with the engine. This 84 Chevy is rocking a 377 stroker motor, which is a built-up version of the classic 350 cubic inch V8. Stroker engines are known for their increased torque and horsepower, so you can bet this truck has some serious get up and go. Paired with that beefy motor is a 350 turbo transmission, which should provide smooth and reliable shifting. The seller also mentions that the carburetor is a 750 double pumper Holley, which is a popular choice for high-performance engines. However, they do note that the carb needs adjusting and the timing needs to be dialed in as well. These are relatively minor issues that can be sorted out by a skilled mechanic or a savvy DIYer. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. The seller mentions that the starter went out and that they had a hard time finding the right replacement. This is definitely something to keep in mind, as a faulty starter can be a real headache. It's unclear whether the seller has replaced the starter or if it's still an ongoing issue. Moving on to the exterior, the truck is painted in a classic red color, while the interior sports a blue color scheme. The seller doesn't provide any photos of the interior, so it's hard to gauge its condition. However, given the age of the truck and the fact that it's had 2 owners, it's safe to assume that there may be some wear and tear. One thing to note is that the seller is firm on their asking price of $5,000. They make it clear that they're not interested in answering a lot of questions, and that if you don't have the cash, you should move on to the next ad. This might be a red flag for some buyers who want to know more about the truck's history and condition before making a purchase. The seller also mentions that the truck will need a trailer to be transported, which suggests that it's not currently in driving condition. This is definitely something to factor into your decision-making process, as it may require additional costs and logistics to get the truck to your location. In summary, This 1984 Chevrolet 1500 seems like a solid choice for someone who wants a powerful, classic truck with a built-up engine. However, there are some potential issues to keep in mind, such as the faulty starter and the need for carburetor and timing adjustments. The seller's firm stance on the price and their reluctance to answer questions may also be a concern for some buyers. 5. We're taking a closer look at a 1964 Chevrolet G10 that's currently up for grabs on Facebook Marketplace. This classic beauty has undergone an impressive transformation with an LS swap, but there are a few things to keep in mind before you pull the trigger on this deal. First off, let's talk about the heart of this 64 Chevy, a 5.3-liter LS engine. LS swaps are incredibly popular among classic car and truck enthusiasts, as they provide modern power and reliability in a vintage package. The seller mentions that the motor is pulling well, which is a good sign. Paired with that LS power plant is an automatic transmission, which should make for a smooth and easy driving experience. However, the seller does note that the transmission has some little details that need to be fixed. It's unclear exactly what these issues are, but it's definitely something to keep in mind and to ask the seller about before making a purchase. Moving on to the exterior, this G10 is painted in a classic white color, which gives it a clean and timeless look. The interior is a bold red, which adds a nice pop of color and personality to the truck. Now here's where things get a bit confusing. The seller mentions that the truck has driven 15,000 miles, but it's unclear if that's the total mileage or just the mileage since the LS swap. It's also worth noting that the seller says, "all old furniture," which is a bit of an odd phrase. It's possible that this is a typo or a mistranslation, but it's something to clarify with the seller. The asking price for this 1964 Chevrolet G10 is $15,000, which is definitely on the higher end for a classic truck with some potential issues. The seller does say, "to deal," which suggests that there may be some wiggle room on the price, but it's hard to say for sure. One potential red flag is the location of the truck. The seller mentions that it's in the area of Donna, Idaho, but doesn't provide an exact location. This could make it difficult for potential buyers to go check out the truck in person, which is always recommended before making a big purchase like this. In summary, this 1964 Chevrolet G10 with an LS swap is definitely an intriguing prospect for classic truck enthusiasts. The modern engine and transmission should provide plenty of power and reliability. But there are some potential issues to keep in mind, such as the transmission details that need fixing and the unclear mileage. The asking price is also quite high, so it's important to do your due diligence and make sure you're getting a fair deal. 6. We're putting the spotlight on a 1978 Chevrolet Silverado that's currently for sale on Facebook Marketplace. This classic red beauty is priced at $9,500, and according to the seller, it's a solid truck that's not far from being road-ready. Under the hood, you'll find a 350 cubic inch small block Chevy engine, which is a tried-and-true power plant that's known for its reliability and performance. Paired with that 350 motor is a 350 transmission, which should provide smooth and consistent shifting. The seller mentions that the truck runs and drives pretty well, which is always a good sign for a vehicle of this age. However, they do note that the suspension could use some work, which is pretty typical for an old truck like this. It's important to keep in mind that a suspension overhaul can be a bit of an investment, so it's something to factor into your decision-making process. Moving on to the exterior, this Silverado is painted in a vibrant red color that's sure to turn heads. The seller mentions that the paint job is a couple of years old, so it should still be in pretty good condition. The interior is also red, which gives the truck a nice cohesive look. One thing to note is that the truck currently needs taillights added. This is a relatively minor issue that can be easily addressed, but it's something to keep in mind if you're planning on driving the truck right away. A cool feature of this 78 Chevy is the Dakota Digital Dash, which adds a modern touch to the classic interior. These digital dashes are known for their accuracy and durability, so it's a nice upgrade to have. The seller describes the truck as being pretty solid overall, with not much needed to get it on the road. They're asking $9,500 or best offer, which seems like a fair price for a classic Chevy truck in this condition. They also mention that they might be open to trades, so if you've got something interesting to offer, it's worth reaching out. In summary, this 1978 Chevrolet Silverado seems like a solid choice for someone who wants a classic truck with a reliable engine and a cool, custom interior. While it does need a few minor things like tail lights and some suspension work, the overall condition of the truck appears to be good, and the price is fairly reasonable. If you're in the market for a vintage Chevy truck and don't mind putting in a little work to get it in top shape, this could be a great option to consider. 7. We're diving into the details of a 1984 Chevrolet C10 Custom Deluxe that's currently for sale on Facebook Marketplace. This blue beauty is priced at $10,000, and from what the seller tells us, it's a solid truck that's been well maintained and upgraded. First off, let's talk about the heart of this 84 C10, a small block Chevy engine with a cam paired with a 350 turbo transmission and a 10-bolt rear end. The seller mentions that the truck runs and drives great and has been driven all over Tennessee without any issues. That's a good sign that the engine and transmission are in good shape and have been properly cared for. The seller also notes that the truck has no rust in the body, which is a big plus for a vehicle of this age. There is a small hole in the front passenger inner fender, but that seems to be the only notable rust issue. Now let's talk about the upgrades. This C10 has a new drive shaft built by Wiles in Jackson, a new set of Beltec Nitro shocks, and all new suspension components from bushings to control arms. This means that the truck should ride smoothly and handle well on the road. The seller has also invested in new front and rear brake pads, shoes and rotors, as well as a new fuel tank and fuel lines. The exhaust system has been upgraded with new 3-inch true dual exhaust and new Super 44 Flowmasters, which should give the truck a nice throaty sound. Under the hood, you'll find an Edelbrock aluminum intake and carburetor, as well as new valve cover gaskets and valve covers. The ignition system has been upgraded with a new Accel distributor, coil, plug wires, and plugs. The truck also has a new radiator to keep everything running cool. The seller mentions that the truck comes with two new 15-8 centerline wheels, as well as two additional 15-10 wheels with MT/ET street tires. There's also another 12-bolt rear end included in the sale, which could be a great spare or an opportunity for further upgrades. The asking price of $10,000 seems fair for a truck with these upgrades and in this condition. The seller also mentions that they're open to trades for a variety of vehicles, including RCSB trucks, V8 GM sedans, IH Scouts or Travelalls, muscle cars, station wagons, K5 Blazers, CK1020 Suburbans, and S10 pickups or Blazers. In summary, this 1984 Chevrolet C10 Custom Deluxe seems like a solid choice for someone who wants a classic truck with some nice upgrades and a strong running engine. The lack of rust and the recent suspension and brake work are definite selling points, and the included extras like the additional wheels and rear end are a nice bonus. If you're in the market for a vintage Chevy truck and have around $10,000 to spend, this could be a great option to consider. 8. We're taking a closer look at a 1984 Chevrolet 2500 work truck that's currently for sale on Facebook Marketplace. This white and blue workhorse is priced at $6,500, and according to the seller, it's a reliable vehicle with some recent upgrades. Under the hood, you'll find a 292 cubic inch straight six engine, which is known for its durability and decent fuel economy. The seller mentions that these engines are one of the most reliable motors built by General Motors, and they offer great torque as well. Paired with that 292 is a 4-speed manual transmission, which should provide a more engaging driving experience. The seller has recently painted the truck with single-stage enamel tractor paint, which they say will help it stand the test of time like old tractors. This is a unique approach to painting a vehicle, but it could be a good choice for a work truck that's going to see some tough use. In terms of recent upgrades, the seller has installed a brand new carburetor, gas tank, fuel pump, spark plugs, windshield wipers, and valve seals. This shows that they've put some effort into maintaining and improving the truck's mechanical components. One thing to note is that the seller mentions the truck does smoke after running for a while, but not on startup. They think it might just need to be driven more, but it's definitely something to keep in mind and to ask more questions about. The oil pressure is reported to be between 30 and 45 psi, which is within the normal range for a truck of this age. However, the seller does mention that the rear tires need to be replaced due to dry rot, so that's an additional expense to factor into your decision. The front tires, on the other hand, are brand new. The truck comes with a clean and clear title, which is always a good sign. The seller is asking $6,500 or best offer, and they're not interested in trades. As for the overall condition of the truck, the seller doesn't mention any major issues or damage. The mileage is listed at 213,167, which is relatively high but not uncommon for a work truck of this age. The utility box on the back is a nice feature for those who need to haul tools or equipment. In summary, this 1984 Chevrolet 2500 work truck seems like a solid choice for someone who needs a reliable and torquey straight-six engine in a tough, no-frills package. The recent upgrades and fresh paint job are nice touches, but the smoking issue and the need for new rear tires are things to consider. 9. We're putting the spotlight on a 1977 GMC C25 Sierra Classic Camper Special that's currently for sale on Facebook Marketplace. This vintage beauty is priced at $8,000, and based on the seller's description, it seems to be a well-maintained and largely original truck. First off, let's talk about the aesthetics. This 77 GMC is rocking its original two-tone Hawaiian Lodi blue paint job, which is a rare and eye-catching color combination. The seller mentions that the interior is also original, which is a big plus for those who value authenticity in their classic vehicles. Under the hood, you'll find a 350 cubic inch small block Chevy V8 engine, which is a reliable and powerful choice for a truck of this size. Paired with that V8 is a 4-speed manual transmission, which should provide a more engaging and fun driving experience compared to an automatic. The seller notes that the truck has power steering and brakes, which is a nice convenience feature for a vehicle of this age. The interior features a cloth bench seat, which should be comfortable for cruising around town or hitting the highway. The AM radio is also reported to be in working condition, which is a cool vintage feature. Now let's talk about the recent maintenance. The seller has invested in a number of upgrades and repairs, including new tires, an oil change with a new filter, transmission and differential fluid changes, new plugs, cap, rotor, and wires, a cleaned carburetor, new air and fuel filters, a new radiator with hoses, new serpentine belts, and some miscellaneous cosmetic parts from LMC truck. This level of recent maintenance is a good sign that the seller has been taking good care of the truck and addressing any issues as they arise. It also means that the buyer shouldn't have to worry about any immediate repairs or upgrades. The mileage is listed at 132,000, which is relatively low for a truck of this age. Of course, it's still important to keep in mind that this is a 44-year-old vehicle, so some wear and tear is to be expected. One thing to note is that the seller doesn't mention anything about rust or other body damage. It's always a good idea to ask for more photos and information about the condition of the frame, undercarriage, and any potential problem areas. The asking price of $8,000 seems fairly reasonable for a well-maintained and largely original classic truck like this. Of course, the value of any vehicle is ultimately dependent on a number of factors, including the local market, the buyer's individual needs and preferences, and the overall condition of the truck. 10. We're diving into the details of a 1982 Chevrolet S10 that's currently for sale on Facebook Marketplace. This tan beauty is priced at $6,500, and based on the seller's description, it's a unique and well-built truck with some impressive upgrades. First off, let's talk about the heart of this 82 S10, a 2003 5.3-liter V8 engine from a third-generation Chevy. The seller mentions that the engine has fresh rebuilt heads, a new water pump, oil pump, timing chain and gears, and a new rear main oil seal. They've also installed new gaskets all around, which shows that they've put a lot of time and effort into making sure this engine is in top shape. The seller also includes a spare 4L60E automatic transmission with a flex plate and torque converter, which is a nice bonus for anyone who wants to have a backup or upgrade options in the future. The truck is reported to run and drive, which is always a good sign. However, the seller does note that the exhaust needs to be done, and the rear end is not currently welded. They offer to weld it up for the buyer if desired, but they also mention that the more work they put into the truck, the higher the price will go. The mileage is listed at just 45,000, which is incredibly low for a truck of this age. Of course, it's important to keep in mind that the engine has been swapped out, so the actual mileage on the chassis and other components may be higher. The exterior and interior of the truck are both tan, which gives it a nice, cohesive look. The seller doesn't provide any photos of the interior, so it's hard to gauge its condition. However, given the overall quality of the build and the low mileage, it's likely that the interior is in decent shape as well. One thing to note is that the seller seems to have a strong attachment to this truck. They mention that they don't really want to sell it, which could be a good sign that they've put a lot of love and care into the build. However, it could also mean that they're less likely to negotiate on price. The asking price of $6,500 may seem high for a nearly 40-year-old S10, but it's important to consider the value of the upgrades and the work that's gone into this truck. The seller makes a good point that trying to build a similar truck from scratch would likely cost a lot more, especially with the current prices of parts and labor. As always, I recommend that interested buyers reach out to the seller for more information and photos, and if possible, go check out the truck in person. Take it for a test drive, get a feel for how it handles, and assess the condition of the engine, transmission, and other components. 11. We're taking a look at a 1985 Dodge D150 that's currently for sale on Facebook Marketplace. The seller is asking $10,500 for this classic truck, which has 115,000 miles on the odometer and comes with an automatic transmission. The exterior is finished in a nice blue color, and the seller mentions that it's clean as they come. Now, I always aim to be honest with you guys, so I'll say this. Based on the limited information provided in the ad, the truck seems to be in good condition considering its age. The seller doesn't mention any major issues or damage, which is a good sign. However, it's important to keep in mind that this is a 38-year-old vehicle, so it's likely to have some wear and tear that comes with age. The seller's description is quite brief, so there aren't many details to go off of. They mention that the truck is located in Ormond Beach, Florida, but don't provide any additional information about its history, maintenance records, or any recent work that's been done. If you're seriously interested in this 1985 Dodge D150, I'd recommend reaching out to the seller and asking for more details and photos. It's always a good idea to have a trusted mechanic inspect a used vehicle before making a purchase, especially one that's nearly 4 decades old. Overall, this classic Dodge truck could be a cool project or a fun weekend cruiser for the right buyer. Just be sure to do your due diligence and gather as much information as possible before making a decision. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next video. 12. We're diving into the world of classic trucks on Facebook Marketplace, and we've stumbled upon a real gem, a 1981 Chevrolet Silverado. The seller has listed this beauty for $13,000, but they're open to offers, so there might be some wiggle room for negotiation. First off, let's talk about the specs. This Silverado is rocking a 5.0L V8 engine, which should provide plenty of power for cruising around town or hitting the highway. It's also got an automatic transmission, making it a breeze to drive. The exterior is a sleek blue color, while the interior is a classic black. Now here's where things get interesting. The seller mentions that the interior is in great shape, which is always a plus for a vehicle of this age. They also state that it runs well and has up-to-date tags, so you shouldn't have to worry about any immediate legal issues. One of the standout features of this Silverado is the new wheels and tires. This is a great selling point, as it shows that the owner has invested some money into keeping the truck in good condition. However, it's important to note that the seller doesn't provide a ton of details about the truck's overall condition. While they mention that it runs well and has a clean title, there's no information about any potential rust, mechanical issues, or other wear and tear that you might expect from a vehicle that's over 40 years old. If you're seriously interested in this 1981 Chevrolet Silverado, I'd recommend reaching out to the seller and asking for more details and photos. It's always a good idea to have a trusted mechanic inspect a used vehicle before making a purchase, especially one that's been around for a while. Overall, this classic Silverado could be a great project truck or a fun weekend cruiser for the right buyer. Just be sure to do your due diligence and gather as much information as possible before making a decision. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. 13. We're checking out a unique find on Facebook Marketplace. A 1972 Chevrolet 2500 that's been given some serious upgrades. The seller is asking $8,000 for this classic truck, but they're open to offers. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty. This 72 Chevy has undergone an LS1 engine swap, which is a popular modification among enthusiasts. The seller mentions that the swap was done right and comes with some upgrades, which is a good sign. They've also paired the 5.3L LS1 engine with a 4-speed manual transmission, giving the driver more control over the truck's power. The exterior of the truck is finished in white, but the seller doesn't provide any photos or details about the interior. They do mention that only the fuel gauge and tachometer are working, which could be a red flag for potential buyers. It's important to note that while the seller states the truck runs and drives good, they don't provide much information about its overall condition. With a vehicle that's nearly 50 years old, there's bound to be some wear and tear, even with the engine swap. The seller also mentions that the truck has a tuner, but needs a TF card, which could be an additional expense for the buyer. If you're seriously interested in this 1972 Chevrolet 2500, I'd recommend reaching out to the seller and asking for more details and photos. It's always a good idea to have a trusted mechanic inspect a used vehicle before making a purchase, especially one that's been modified. Overall, this classic Chevy truck with an LS1 swap could be a fun project for the right buyer. Just be sure to do your due diligence and gather as much information as possible before making a decision. The seller is asking for serious buyers only, so be prepared to ask questions and potentially negotiate on the price. 14. We're taking a closer look at a 1982 Ford F-250 that's currently for sale on Facebook Marketplace. The seller is asking $5,500 for this classic truck, which has an impressive 401,649 miles on the odometer. That's right, you heard me correctly. Over 400,000 miles. Now, let's dive into the details. This F-250 is equipped with a manual transmission and is powered by an inline 6-cylinder engine. The exterior is a brown color, but the seller doesn't provide any information about the interior. The seller mentions that the truck runs and drives strong and is still being used as a daily driver, which is a testament to the durability of these old Ford trucks. However, it's important to keep in mind that with such high mileage, there's bound to be some wear and tear on the vehicle. The seller also states that this is only for people who know about cars, which suggests that there may be some issues or quirks that come with owning a vehicle of this age and mileage. They also mention that they're willing to trade, so if you have something of value to offer, it might be worth reaching out. One thing to note is that the seller says, if you are not interested, don't ask, which could be a red flag for some buyers. It's always a good idea to ask questions and gather as much information as possible before making a purchase, especially with a vehicle that has over 400,000 miles. If you're seriously interested in this 1982 Ford F-250, I'd recommend reaching out to the seller and asking for more details and photos. It's always a good idea to have a trusted mechanic inspect a used vehicle before making a purchase, especially one with such high mileage. Overall, this classic Ford truck could be a great project for someone who knows their way around cars and is willing to put in some work. Just be sure to do your due diligence and gather as much information as possible before making a decision. 15. We're taking a look at a 1983 Ford Ranger that's up for sale on Facebook Marketplace. The seller, J.O., who joined Facebook in 2024, which is a bit confusing, but let's move on, is asking $1,500 or best offer for this classic truck. Now let's get into the details. This Ranger has a manual transmission and a white exterior with a red interior. It's powered by a gasoline engine, and the seller mentions that it's had 3 or more owners over the years. Here's where things get a bit tricky. The seller states that the truck needs a new transfer case or the old one rebuilt, which could be a significant expense for the buyer. They also mention that there's no title for the vehicle, but they're willing to do a bill of sale. On the plus side, the seller says that the Ranger is a great rock crawler, which suggests that it's been used for off-roading and may have some modifications or upgrades. It's important to note that without a title, registering and insuring the vehicle could be a hassle, depending on your state's laws. This is definitely something to consider before making a purchase. The seller is open to trades, so if you have something of value to offer, it might be worth reaching out. However, with the lack of a title and the need for a new transfer case, this truck is definitely a project vehicle that will require some work and investment. If you're seriously interested in this 1983 Ford Ranger, I'd recommend reaching out to the seller and asking for more details and photos. It's always a good idea to have a trusted mechanic inspect a used vehicle before making a purchase, especially one with known issues like this. Overall, this classic Ford truck could be a fun project for someone who's willing to put in the time and money to get it back on the road or the trails. Just be sure to do your due diligence and gather as much information as possible before making a decision. 16. We're checking out a real blast from the past, a 1966 Chevrolet C20 that's currently for sale on Facebook Marketplace. The seller is asking $5,500 for this classic truck, which has been in their family for close to 4 decades. That's right, this truck has some serious history. Now let's dive into the details. This C20 has a manual transmission with a 4-on-the-floor shifter, which is a classic setup for trucks of this era. It's powered by a 283 cubic inch engine, which the seller says runs like a champ. The exterior is finished in white, while the interior is a brown color. The seller mentions that they've been using the truck for dump runs and running around town, which suggests that it's been well maintained and is still in good working order. They also state that the truck has been in the family for close to 40 years, which is a testament to its durability and the care it's received over the years. According to the listing, this C20 has driven approximately 80,000 miles, which is relatively low for a vehicle of this age. The seller also notes that the truck has a clean title and no significant damage or problems, which is always a good sign. Of course, it's important to keep in mind that this is still a 55-year-old vehicle, so there may be some wear and tear that comes with age. However, based on the seller's description and the photos provided, this truck seems to be in good condition overall. If you're seriously interested in this 1966 Chevrolet C20, I'd recommend reaching out to the seller and asking for more details and perhaps some additional photos. It's always a good idea to have a trusted mechanic inspect a used vehicle before making a purchase, especially one that's been around for over half a century. Overall, this classic Chevy truck could be a great project for someone who appreciates vintage vehicles and wants a reliable workhorse that's full of character. With its manual transmission, 283 engine, and long family history, this C20 is definitely a unique find on Facebook Marketplace. 17. We've got a real treat for you. A 1984 Ford Bronco 2 XLT that's currently for sale on Facebook Marketplace. The seller is asking $6,500 or best offer for this classic SUV, which has just 64,180 miles on the odometer. That's right, this Bronco has been well preserved over the years. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. This Bronco 2 has a manual transmission and a 4x4 drivetrain, making it perfect for off-road adventures or tackling tough terrain. It's powered by the original 6V engine, which the seller says runs smoothly. The exterior is finished in a sleek black color, but the seller doesn't provide any information about the interior. One of the standout features of this Bronco is its overall condition. The seller mentions that it has a new fuel tank and pump, and the body is straight with no dents. They also note that it has a clean title in hand, which is always a good sign. The seller suggests that this Bronco is the perfect project for anyone looking to customize it to their liking. Whether you want to keep it original, go for a vintage look, or even a matte black finish, the possibilities are endless. They also mention that you could add upholstery to the roof if you'd like, which could be a fun DIY project. Of course, it's important to keep in mind that this is still a 37-year-old vehicle, so there may be some wear and tear that comes with age. However, based on the seller's description and the low mileage, this Bronco seems to be in excellent condition overall. If you're seriously interested in this 1984 Ford Bronco 2 XLT, I'd recommend reaching out to the seller and asking for more details and perhaps some additional photos of the interior. It's always a good idea to have a trusted mechanic inspect a used vehicle before making a purchase, especially one that's been around for a while. Overall, this classic Ford Bronco could be a great project for someone who appreciates vintage SUVs and wants a reliable vehicle with plenty of character. With its manual transmission, 4x4 drivetrain, and low mileage, this Bronco is definitely a unique find on Facebook Marketplace. 19. Let me tell you about this interesting 1977 Chevrolet 2500 Custom I found on Facebook Marketplace for $3,500. I've got to be honest with you, this is quite an intriguing find. This classic Chevy comes with the reliable 350 small block engine and has clocked 92,000 miles, which isn't bad at all for a vehicle of this age. The current owner has clearly taken good care of the mechanical aspects. It's been garage kept in heated storage and maintained meticulously, which is a huge plus for a classic vehicle. Now let's address the elephant in the room, the appearance. The truck has a two-tone look with a custom green hood while the rest is in primer, and yes, there's some surface rust on the body. I'm being straight with you here. It's not winning any beauty contest in its current state. However, the important stuff, the frame, axles, suspension, and engine, are all reported to be clean and strong. The truck features a manual transmission, which many enthusiasts prefer, and has only had 2 owners throughout its life. Recent improvements include a new exhaust system and muffler, and it starts right up without hesitation. For $3,500, you're getting a mechanically sound classic truck that could either be a solid work vehicle, it's been used for occasional wood hauling, or a great foundation for a restoration project. The price seems reasonable considering the mechanical condition, though you'll need to factor in some body work if you're looking to restore it to its former glory. Remember, this isn't a show car, it's a working classic with some cosmetic needs, but the bones are good, and sometimes that's exactly what you're looking for in a classic truck. 20. I want to share with you this interesting 1977 Ford F-150 Custom that's currently listed on Facebook Marketplace for $9,000. Let me give you my honest take on this classic pickup. This long bed F-150 comes with the desirable 351M V8 engine, which was one of Ford's more robust power plants of that era. With reportedly around 45,000 miles on the clock, though with classics we should always take mileage figures with a grain of salt, it's showing relatively low mileage for its age. The 3-speed column shift manual transmission adds to its classic charm and authenticity. The seller has invested in some important mechanical updates. There's a new clutch, carburetor, and water pump, which are all crucial components that often need attention in vehicles of this age. These improvements suggest that the truck has received some necessary maintenance. The blue exterior and matching blue interior give it a clean, classic look. From the seller's description and the mention that it's a good-looking, reliable truck, it seems to be in presentable condition, though remember that good-looking is subjective when it comes to 45-year-old vehicles. At $9,000, you're looking at the higher end of the market for a 77 F-150, so you'll want to inspect it thoroughly in person. While these trucks are gaining value as classics, make sure the condition matches the asking price. The mechanical updates are definitely a plus, but you'll want to verify the overall condition, especially the frame and body, as these are common issue areas for trucks of this era. 20. Let me be completely straight with you about this 1977 Ford F-150 that's listed for $7,000 on Facebook Marketplace. I'm going to be brutally honest here because you need to know exactly what you're looking at. First, let's address the elephant in the room. This truck has no title, and while there's a Vermont loophole explanation, that's something you'll need to carefully consider depending on your state's registration requirements. The truck also sat for 10 years before the current owner got it running again. Now let's talk about the good and the bad, because there's plenty of both. The current owner has put in significant work on the mechanical side: new spark plugs, coil wires, rebuilt carburetor, New brakes all around, new brake lines, fresh tires, new front axle U-joints, and various other maintenance items. The Dana 44 front differential is a desirable feature, and with 73,000 miles, the engine still has life in it. But I've got to be straight with you about the body condition. It's rough. The cab needs serious work. We're talking about floor panels that are currently patched with license plates. Yes, you read that right. Kick panels that need welding, and a generally rough cab condition. The owner is upfront about this, which I appreciate. At $7,000, you need to understand what you're getting into. This is a running, driving classic truck that needs significant body work. It's been serving as a daily driver for the current owner, which speaks to its mechanical reliability, but it's definitely not a showpiece. If you're mechanically inclined and looking for a project truck that you can drive while you restore it, this might be worth considering, though I'd try to negotiate that price given the body condition and title situation. However, if you're looking for a clean, ready-to-go classic truck, you might want to keep looking. Remember, sometimes the cheapest thing about an old truck is buying it. It's what comes after that can get expensive. But at least with this one, the seller is being honest about what you're getting into.